Well, welcome to Modeling Time with me, Brian Banna. And in this episode of the Phase 1 F3 build, I'm going to give you a close-up look of the paint chipping on the trucks. The trucks are all painted and ready for weathering. I'm going to show you sanding lines and what I do for sanding lines, and that's about it. So let me get the camera set up, and I'll see if I can't give you a good view of how the trucks turned out as far as the chipping goes. It's very light, so I don't know how well it's going to show up, but I'll give it a shot. And then we'll go over making sanding lines. Alright, so I think I showed in the last video what the trucks look like with the rust tones and the earth tones underneath the black paint. So then I put a hairspray over them, and then a very light coat of hairspray. I didn't want any heavy chipping. I just want a little bit. I don't know if you can really see it on here, but it's right in here. You can see some right in here maybe. See where else. See some on the brake cylinder in here. Not a lot on this truck. There's some there. There's some there. There's some over here. So I'm hoping you can see that, but it's very, very light. I can't zoom in anymore, otherwise it'll go blurry. That's about as close as I can get. So the trucks are all done. Now let me move these out of the way. I've got the speed recorder cable on. That is what is that? That's the ESU Loc Sound wire. That's this one here. Let me zoom out. That's this one here. And let me see, what's the part number? 51942. So that's what I use for the speed recorder cable. I stripped the insulation off the end, I tin the end, cut it to size, and then I glue it in with some CA. So that takes care of the truck. Trucks are all done there. And now you'll notice I have these pins out on the end. Those are for the sanding hoses that I explained before. So now the sanding hoses are made from this, the 30 gauge stranded ultra flexible wire. And then I cut a piece that's, where did I put that at? I think I stripped them all out. No, there it is. Okay, so this one I haven't stripped out yet. So I cut pieces about 2 inches long, and I won't be using the whole 2 inches, but I want them long enough so I have room to figure out how long they need to be once they're installed on the model. So what happens is, I'm going to be grit blasting these. They'll be going on this tree, and then I'll grit blast some. I've got the 12 thousandths wire here, which is the same as the piece of wire that's coming out down here. And what I do is I strip the wire out, and so this is a 2-inch piece. So let me zoom in just a little bit. Let me put that aside. Alright, so I'll just take that and I'll just cut that off. Then what I do is I just take some flat nose pliers and I'll grab that wire, and then I'll get my fingers as close to the end, if not over the end, as possible, because if you pull back here, you're going to snap this. There's too much tension on the wire. But if you can get your fingers over the end where the insulation has been cleaned off, and you pull back now, you'll see that it's curling here. That's because some of the wire is pulling this insulation. So just come back here and straighten out the insulation. And then reposition your pliers and give it a good pull. Once you get a few strands out, the rest of them will come out pretty good. These ones are breaking. There we go. Is that all of them? Yep. And then I'll just come back and I'll just re-straighten the wire or the insulation, and that's the insulation. Now what it does, there's enough tension, like for instance if this pin here, these pins here are the same as these pins here, so there's enough tension that when you go to put these on the trucks, oh, let me get into the camera here. Here. So there's enough tension that when you put them on the trucks that they're not just going to fall off. So that's how I got to put the rest of these on there. So I'll do that after I'm done with the camera. And you can see over here I've got all the wires, so I'll just throw that all in the trash. Now, I've been doing sanding hoses like this now for, shoot, I can't even remember the first model that I put them on. But it's been quite some time. I think I started doing it back in the early 2000s or mid, like 2006 or 7 or something like that. But I wasn't happy with anything available, and I didn't like connecting the hoses to behind the, like we used to do. We used to come down, put them through the frame, through the caliper area down here, and then wrap them and put them back behind the frame. I didn't like that because the hoses go up into the locomotive frame. They come off the frame, off a pipe there. So I was searching for a way to do it, and this is what I've come up with. Now, a sanding hose is, I think it's 2 inches in diameter. These are about dead on for the size of the sanding hose. And what I like about them, you know how on the manufacturers right now, they just have a nice smooth arc that comes down and it just doesn't look right. But with these, once you get the pins in the frame and stuff, you can you know, form or get the length set up so they have a nice flowing curve to them and they look really, really well. So that takes care of that. I got to put these on. The pickup strips are all painted, and I need to weather the wire when I do the weathering on the gear towers. That way this wire won't stick out like a sore thumb, all clean and black. So when I weather the gear towers, I'll weather this wire as well, maybe like up to about that much, something like that. Let me see, is there anything else? I think that takes care of everything. So my next step is to get all these wires on here, get them all grit blasted, get these insulators onto the truck frames, and that way when I weather the truck frames, I can weather the sanding hose. Oh, one other thing I want to say. Now, I know that there's a lot of people, I don't think there's very many that have a grit blasting booth. I'll be grit blasting these, but there's another way of doing it. Before you strip the wire off, you can use a piece of sanding paper. This is just out of that Testors pack. And you can just stick your wire in there and just pull it through and just sand it. All you want to do is take that shine off of it. The reason I want to do that is I don't want to paint these like with the same paint that I painted the side frames. I want to just weather them with light washes, and that wash will attach to it, and that way when you go to form them and stuff, the paint won't crack as the rubber's bending, or whatever these things are made out of is making its bend. So that way you take the shine off of them and your weathering will stick to them just fine. So you can just use a piece of sandpaper. This is like really fine. You can use a little bit coarser than this. And you can just, like I said, just stick it in there and just pull it through, do the other way. Don't hold it too hard, otherwise you'll snap it when you pull it. But just put a little bit of tension on it, rotate the sanding hose or the insulator, and just do that to it. So that's just a little tip for those, of course, that don't have a grit blasting booth. You can take the shine off with some sandpaper. So I'm going to go ahead and get these sanding hoses done, get them on the side frames, and start weathering the side frames. Now I'm not going to show you the weathering of the side frames. that video would go on for hours and hours and hours. I'll show you the results when they're done. It's not, and I'll explain what I did with them. It's not much different than what I did with the gondola, weathering the gondola and stuff. But believe me, guys, it would go on for many hours. And I don't think people really want to sit and watch the mundane application of washes and pin washes and pigments and all that stuff. So I'll explain what I've done to them when they're done, and then we'll move on to the next step. Well, that takes care of getting the truck side frames, and also I have the gear towers painted, and you saw that I had the pickup strips painted and stuff. That takes care of getting the trucks ready, all the parts of the trucks ready for weathering. The wheels, no big deal. I'll put them in a wheel mask, I'll grit blast them, I'll paint them, and weather them with pigments like I always do. So that takes care of the trucks. Next time you see them, they'll be all done, all weathered, and ready to go into the chassis. After that's done, I move on to the fuel tank, get that all painted and weathered and all that stuff, but we'll get into that when the time comes. So hopefully you got something out of that, and again, thank you for watching.